Back with another edition of the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast with you as always, Jeffri Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Much to get to today as we have a lot of ground to cover as we get ready for the opening. The Chiefs are going to begin their defense of back-to-back Super Bowl championships. Try to become the first team ever to three-peat. They start on a Thursday night against the Baltimore Ravens, a rematch of the AFC Championship game. How much does that AFC title game impact this contest, if at all? How do the Chiefs match up with the Ravens defense with no Hollywood Brown? The Chiefs have raved about his recovery, but still – looks like the timeline is going to be a little bit later on. When will we see Hollywood Brown again? Do the Chiefs need to be more concerned about the Ravens' run game with Derrick Henry in the backfield? How big a factor is the loss of L'Jarius Sneed in the season opener? What do you expect from the new arrivals? Samaje Perine, JuJuSmith-Schuster, Clyde Edwards-Helaire going to the IL. We've had some roster moves right up to the brink of that first game. And, of course, we'll give you who we think is going to win this game. We do it all right now here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeffri Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeffri Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is the sports columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by David Starnes Allstate Insurance, covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff as well. Motorcycle, boat, ATV, you name it. Get with Dave and he'll have you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call, visit them online, or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave. He'll give you peace of mind today for the things in your life most important to you. Now, here are the hosts of the best Chiefs podcast, Jeffri Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Rolling along here. Finally, we're to the regular season. It's not – it seems like it lasts forever, and now all of a sudden it's right upon – I don't know about anybody else, but I'm like, okay, I have 9 million things to do before Thursday comes about. Am I the only one that feels like, I've been waiting all off season to get to this game, and now I'm like, all right, hold on. Can I get like 10 more days? Can I get a little break here before we have to do all this? Am I the only one that feels that way?
Well, I feel that way every week. So, yes, I'll add this week to it.
Yeah, Sam's the hardest working person among the three of us.
I don't know.
You guys got to deal with Royals fever and Tires and K-State.
Yeah,
KU,
we found the cure for the Royals fever. It's called Houston. That's got a different tone to it these days. No, but it is Val. There is a lot of things going on right now with the Royals being in there. But let's start with this game, Jeff. The AFC Championship game was a hard-hitting defensive struggle where, all teams look different by the time they roll around to the next year. There's some big names in new places. Derrick Henry is now a member of the Baltimore Ravens. The Chiefs have had a flurry of moves here right at the end of the roster. Roster construction, the finalizing of their 53-man roster. Does that AFC Championship game hang over the Baltimore Ravens in any way? Does it give the Chiefs false bravado going into this game? What role will that play?
I don't know if it's false bravado, but I do feel as if there is going to be some level of emotion tied back to that for the guys who played it on the Baltimore side, because it was an epic failure for them. I mean, they had everything going as far as home field advantage, AFC Championship game in their house, the MVP, and it was a complete disaster. Obviously the Chiefs went in there and won the game, but obviously the game plan was crazy at best. Actually, when I think about the right word to describe it, but it's still insane to think that they ran the football 8 times with their running back. So I feel like Lamar Jackson has a lot to prove still. I feel like the Ravens have a lot to prove still. They have not won a meaningful game against the Chiefs ever. And so that weighs into it. So, yeah, it's going to be a big party for the Chiefs. But the Ravens, if they're going to build on what happened last season, they got to win this game.
Yeah. Sam, what role do you think it plays?
Well, I think we're going to say this a lot this year, but it's a bigger game for the opponent than it is the Chiefs. And for the reasons Jeff outlined, I think the Ravens need to prove themselves that they can beat this team. Even if it's in the regular season, I think it does have an effect on future playoff ramifications, because there's no doubt. I mean, I think all three of us think that these two teams could be meeting again in January. And if the Ravens win this game, I think it means more to them than it would the Chiefs. But, game plan wise, these games always matter. But it's interesting because the Ravens have had so much turnover on their coaching staff too, because the way these games matter more than players is just scheme. And I think the Chiefs offense and Andy Reid and Matt Nagy are going to be a little bit in the dark about what are the Ravens going to bring defensively, scheme wise, with the it's not just that they lost Mike McDonald and now Zach Orr's calling the plays. Like, they lost a lot of the top assistants too. And so I just think there's a lot of question about exactly what are the Ravens going to want to do. And by the way, the Ravens are traditionally a team that gets better defensively later in the season than they are in September. So I know this seems like wow, that the Chiefs didn't catch much of a break drawing the Ravens right out of the gate. You had to play them at some point. And if I were an opponent, I'd much rather play them on opening night in September than I would in December.
You agree with that, Jeff? Do you the coaching there for a second? I thought Sam was going to say that, because we don't know what it's going to be, which is true. That is a bit of a wild card. Like, how will they be different with a new guy calling the shots? But do you think all the turnover for the Ravens ends up meaning that the Ravens are a second half team? It seems like their best years when they run out and get the 1 seed, they kind of come out hot and stay hot, and they're out in front and everyone chases them. Does that work against them this year? And are they more of a late finisher?
Well, look, they started slow last year, and their home opener they won, but it was not a pretty start. And I remember probably 4 or 5 weeks into the season, there was a lot of discussion about, is this offense, all this change, all this Todd Monken coming in and opening it up with the pass game, where is it at? And statistically, I think they ended up averaging about 28 points a game for the season, but the first 5 games they were at 22. And so Lamar Jackson has been asked about this and the importance of starting fast. And he has come out and said that they want to show that one more year, one more offseason with this offense, one more year of maturation for the younger players like Zay Flowers, like Isaiah Likely. Yeah, Likely. All these guys, bringing Derrick Henry in, that will all help them start fast, but they got to prove it. They haven't done it before.
Yeah, this is. I think it's really interesting because the Ravens seem to be, they come on and they have this great year, and then the next year they don't just go away. John Harbaugh's too good a coach, but they seem to have these magical runs, right? And can they put that together? Have they had 2 years where they've been the top seed or a 1 and 2 seed back to back in the John Harbaugh era? Isn't this almost like the year you bet the under against the Ravens because they usually have a regression after a big year like last year? And then it's when you start to think like, well, they're just a 10-7 team, that all of a sudden here they are 13-4, 14-3.
Well, yeah, I mean, go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say injuries have played a role in that too. I mean,
yes.
You can follow up on that, Sam, but they've been banged up 2
True.
previous years, which is a big factor in why they weren't successful.
Yeah, I mean, in four of the 5 years that Lamar's quarterbacked them, they've won double-digit games. And the one they didn't, they went 8-9, but he was 7-5, and then he got injured. And so I think that was still a 16-game, that was a 17-game year, 8-9. I mean, they win 1 out of 5 without him. So Lamar Jackson's record with the Ravens has been really good.
The Chiefs have a lot to prove too. This is what Rhett says. They stunk in the opener last year and they need to prove the wide receivers are better. I don't know. Did the Chiefs stink, or did the Lions turn out to be a pretty damn good team? I mean,
got a lot of footballs, a lot of drops in that game.
Right. But is that the Chiefs or was that one guy? Was that Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore? Like we kind of, I don't know why it took them all the way to Christmas to figure out that little riddle, but was the rest of the team really that bad against the Detroit Lions in the opener? I mean, Andy Reid has won every opener but 2 since he's been here. This year will be his 12th? Is that right? Season
2013. Yeah.
So he's 9-2. I mean, are we like it's not like there's a history of the Chiefs coming out slow.
Well, I think the point he's making is that, and I agree with this, that we're giving this receiver core a pass. And I know it's easy to dump on these guys last year and what they ended up being, but I don't remember going into last year saying, man, Sky Moore can't catch. Kadarius Toney can't catch. Like, what do they got here? There was a lot of excitement about what they had last season and what they could become. So I agree. I think without Hollywood Brown there, and we don't know what Xavier Worthy is going to be, and the cornerback situation on the other side of it, I think that we're kind of like baking in a lot of success in areas that are critical for them to be successful.
I think that's fair. I think it's fair. The Red Gold and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by David Starnes Allstate Insurance, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. With David Starnes Allstate, it's not just about fender benders. Beyond traditional safeguards, enjoy perks like roadside assistance for unexpected breakdowns, transportation expense coverage when you ride, when your car needs a pit stop, auto replacement protection to keep you on the road in style, and much, much more. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. That's 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. All right. So do we believe that the Chiefs offense matches up well, Sam, with this Ravens defense? I mean, you said we don't really know what it's going to get. Jeff just said, hey, we don't really know what the receivers are going to give the Chiefs. We think it's going to be an upgrade. We assume that they didn't keep lesser players. So what do we expect about the matchup, Chiefs offense against Ravens defense?
Well, there's one particular piece of it that I'm most interested in, which is we've heard all off season about the Chiefs trying to improve one very specific aspect of their passing game, which is throwing the ball downfield. You know, the very best team in the NFL was against guarding the deep pass last year, the Baltimore Ravens. And so right out of the gate, we're going to actually see if the Chiefs have improved this aspect of their passing game with the absolute toughest test I think they could have, because the two primary reasons for that are their safeties. And Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams are in Baltimore still. And I think it's probably the best. I mean, Jeff would know this better than me, but they're at least a top five safety duo, if not the very best safety duo in the league. Kyle Hamilton didn't allow a touchdown in the regular season last year. And then Travis Kelce beat him in the first drive of the AFC Championship game. It was the only touchdown he allowed the whole year. And so that's a really intriguing matchup to me, is whether or not the Chiefs are going to attempt to execute this against the Ravens, knowing how stout they are at the back end of their secondary, or whether it's till week 2 before we see that, because the Bengals were not good at that a year ago. And so do we see the Chiefs try and force the issue to prove to themselves they can do it, knowing that one of the guys that would be part of this equation is not going to be part of this equation on opening night with Hollywood Brown?
Yeah, a good point brought up here that Travis Kelce didn't play in that opener last year. So that's something to consider. He was hurt going in there. No Chris Jones, as we put up there. It is a healthier Chiefs team. Everybody practiced except Hollywood Brown, right? Like, that's part of the equation, Jeff. Not having him does hurt, but everybody else was a full go in practice on Monday. So they do look like they're, at least right now, and Travis Kelce's injury didn't happen until, I don't remember when it was, a couple days before the game, but
Friday. It was just Friday before.
Was it Friday?
No. It was the quote unquote normal Friday practice. That would have been the Tuesday before.
Okay. So, we haven't reached that point yet, but this is the full complement of Chiefs minus Hollywood Brown. How big of an impact is Hollywood Brown?
I think it's significant. I mean, they're expecting big things from him. I mean, we've on this show you guys have talked about the expectations you have for him of being 1,000-yard receiver and a career year. So to say he's not going to be there, I would imagine that's a huge, huge void. And I think it's interesting that you even heard some of the talk around the Chiefs of walking back the expectations on Xavier Worthy in terms of filling that void. Like, clearly Justin Watson's going to be a big part of that. But a lot's going to fall on Rashee Rice. A lot's going to fall on Travis Kelce, as it should, and Isaiah Pacheco. We'll see what Samaje Perine brings. But I go back to last year in the AFC Championship game. They had Rashee Rice. They had Travis Kelce. They had Pacheco. And they wound up not scoring a lot of points, not moving the ball a whole lot. They really had two good drives, and that was the whole game. So I think it's definitely an advantage. It's definitely a push with Baltimore on defense and the Chiefs on offense. I think it's going to be a battle to score points in this game for the Chiefs.
It is of note that we did think Rashee Rice was maybe going to be out of this game, right? That was one of the things, and Now, unless there's some last-minute deal, it looks like Rashee Rice will be in. So, there for a while when Hollywood Brown went down, there was a lot of people that thought they were going to be without both of them, Sam. It looks like Rashee Rice is going to play. That helps quite a bit.
Yeah, and to touch on something Jeff said with Hollywood Brown, Justin Watson is kind of filling in for Hollywood Brown, but that actually tells you more about Hollywood Brown than it does Justin Watson, because they're asking Watson to learn more of the underneath stuff than he ran a year ago. We've talked about how much vertical he ran last season. Now he's running more underneath stuff to fill in for a guy that I think most people just anticipate being a vertical threat, but that tells you their plans for Hollywood Brown, that they anticipate him running a more diverse route tree than maybe a guy like Xavier Worthy, who maybe we will see be more of a vertical receiver, that Hollywood Brown is going to be much more in the mix, I think, than people anticipate with all levels of the defense.
Our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete proudly serve the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems, they've been making them disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Get your seal coating done now before the weather turns cold. Weekends are booking up fast with free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project coming with a written warranty. Gann Asphalt and Concrete keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. That's GannAsphalt.com. Or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. We've had a couple of people in here, Jeff, say shootout. Like this thing's going to be a shootout. Do you see that kind of game?
No, I don't see it. I don't see it because, one, I think both teams are going to try to do a lot to mitigate the offensive success of the other ones. And they played last year and it wasn't a shootout. It was 17-10. I just feel like on both sides of it, there's going to be some questions. On the Chiefs side of it, with Chris Jones and that defensive line going against a Ravens offensive line that lost 3 starters from last year. That's a big question mark for them. And so I don't think you're going to see a ton of big plays. I think it's going to be a lot of phone booth, a lot of mud wrestling, a lot of rock fighting going on, even though both teams have a lot of offensive talent.
Yeah, what do you see out of the Ravens, Sam? You mentioned the coaching staff changes, right? Like that's of note. Derrick Henry's the big name that they brought in, but they had attrition like every team does. What do you see from the Ravens as far as are they as good as they were last year?
I mean, they were built on Lamar Jackson last year, but the thing that put the fear into the Chiefs a year ago was the running game. And Jeff just mentioned it, but they've replaced 3 offensive linemen, and they didn't bring in veteran offensive linemen to replace those guys. They have a left guard who's never played in the NFL last year because last year was his rookie year. He was injured. They have a right guard who's playing a new position for the first time. And they have a right tackle who's just been a journey. He's like a Nick Allegretti type that has played more of the tackle and inside. He's never played the same position, it seems like, in back-to-back years. When you look at his game log, I think he has 30 starts in 5 years. Those are 3 of their 5 offensive linemen. Like I read on the website FTN, they are replacing more offensive snaps on their offensive line than any team in football this offseason.
And the offensive line coach died.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't laugh about it, but it's like that's part of this too. They lost a guy who was really good coaching the offensive line.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great point. And let's go back to what somebody said before. There was no Chris Jones in the opener against Detroit. Chris Jones makes a really big difference, and we haven't really seen him in the preseason. Chris Jones against guys that are, just trying to get their feet under him is a bad mismatch.
Two of those are interior linemen, Saran. We've got a left guard and right guard.
And they'll move them around and line them up on whoever they think they get the easiest matchup on.
Yeah.
So
it's gonna be a lot of running at Chris Jones, a lot of Derrick Henry and Patrick Ricard coming at Chris. I promise you that'll be part of their game plan.
What do we think is left in the tank for Derrick Henry? I mean, what do you expect from Derrick Henry, Jeff, at this point in his career?
Oh, I think he's still serviceable. He's not going to be 2,000-yard Derrick Henry, but he's still 6'3", 240 pounds, and he's running behind a 300-pound fullback, and he's got a quarterback who, if he gets around the edge, can take off on you. So that's still going to be a problem for a lot of teams. Like, now we'll see if he can stay healthy. That's if you're the Ravens, you want this game early because you want to make sure Derrick Henry can play in it. Now down the road, maybe he does get banged up and he does get slowed up by injuries, but I think, right now, I think I'd be surprised if he wasn't around 1,000 yards, if not over that this year. I think he can still give you that.
In 2020, he rushed for 2,000 yards. He averaged 5.4 yards per carry. Followed that up with 937 yards, 4.3, 1538, 4.4. Last year, 1167. He averaged 4.2 yards per carry. I mean, listen, I still think he's a guy that you definitely don't want to tackle. I mean, I think he's the body blow of a boxing match, right? Beat up the defense with him, and then, the question is, do they have the passing attack that then after you beat the hell out of somebody can go out there and take advantage of it? But the idea that Derrick Henry is going to come in and go for, listen, I may be eating these words when we do the podcast next Tuesday, but the idea that Derrick Henry is going to come in and pound away for 200 yards or 175, I think those days are gone.
I will say the one stat about that goes into his yards per carry that needs to be the context for his yards per carry is he still faced the second highest percentage of 8-man boxes in the league last year. Like even last year, I mean, he definitely is not what he once was, but teams still saw him as that level of threat to where the game plan was entirely centered around Derrick Henry.
Well, and to add to that point, I think the one argument the Ravens made last year after they lost that game about why they didn't run the football more was the looks they were getting from the Chiefs were suggesting they were stacking. They were loading up against the run. Like if you got 8 guys in there, they're still going to run Derrick Henry if they can. And so he doesn't have to be a 175-yard guy, but if you give him 20, if you make them run the football more, they become more of who they are.
And aren't we? I mean, I want to take a look at what the numbers were for last year, but do we believe that if you put 8 men in the box that Mark Andrews, who's on the injury report after a car accident and is usually on the injury report all year anyway, any fantasy nerd can tell you that one, and Nelson Aguilar, Rashard Bateman, and Zay Flowers are the combination of receivers to really take advantage of, if you have 8 in the box, they're going to make you pay.
Well, they do because, look, the Ravens last year improved their passing game. And one of the reasons I think a lot of people look at Lamar Jackson and think of, if he does throw it, he's this dink and dunk guy. He was second to C.J. Stroud last year in his average depth of target. The Ravens will throw the ball deep. And it's particularly for this reason. They see all sorts of defenders in the box. They got a guy last year in the draft, a first-round pick with Zay Flowers, a guy the Chiefs were interested in drafting, particularly because he can run deep. And so they have found a solution to the way teams are defending him. I will say with the tight ends, because the Chiefs back in the day, 4 or 5 years ago, were terrible against tight ends. I mean, just anecdotally, if not statistically, they were really bad against tight ends. 2 years ago, they were bottom 10 in the NFL still in defending tight ends. Last year, they were 8th. It was one of the biggest improvements they made last year was they learned how to defend tight ends. And with Drew Tranquill playing a little bit, more on the outside, not in the middle, I think he's going to be involved in that more. And that's a really interesting matchup to me, too, because Willie Gay was the guy who defended tight ends a lot for the Chiefs last year. And therefore, do Likely and Mark Andrews become a bigger part of the Ravens game plan because they say that guy's not on your defense anymore.
Yeah. And Flowers did hit 2 big plays against them last year in the AFC Championship game. One was a touchdown, and the other one was the personal foul he got from shoving Sneed down. And so they will throw it deep.
Yeah, they will. And he's got an arm, but still 24 touchdowns on the year, in 16 games where we're not, they're not. And listen, when they get close, they want to pound the rock and they want to run it in where Andy Reid will do some, glorified long handoffs, which result in higher touchdown passing numbers for Patrick Mahomes. I'm not trying to say the guy can't do it because I agree with what Sam said. He is willing to go down the field, and they have been more, a better passing game. And I think he's a better passer. That's why he won the MVP last year was because of his passing game and the steps he took. But still, 24 touchdowns is 24 touchdowns, right? It's
How many did Mahomes have?
He had 28, and it was considered his worst year. Right? Isn't it 28, Sam? Am I off on that?
I thought maybe 26, but
I thought it was 26 or 27.
6. Okay. Listen,
27. Split the difference.
Well, let me look. Is that if my point being though, I think that's the highest total of his career. No, he had 30 that first breakout year, didn't he? Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's highest touchdown total is
36. His first MVP
year.
So, I mean, since then, 26, 16, 17, 24.
highest yards per attempt of his career a year ago with 8 yards per attempt. I mean, that's a really good number.
It is. And listen, I think they're a really good team. The question is, are they a better team than the one that lost to a Chiefs team that's considered their most down team in the last couple of years? I mean, is that off? I mean, how much does the offensive line, they go get Derrick Henry because they don't think they can block anybody?
No, I think they go get him because they needed running backs. They finished when the offseason started, they had 2 running backs under contract. So they had to go find somebody to run the football. And they wanted him last year. It's the guy who really hurt them last year that they could have used in the AFC Championship game is Keaton Mitchell, who tore his ACL up late in the year and is still not playing yet. I think he's on the PUP list. But no, I think these teams are very equal. I thought the Ravens were the better team last year, and the Chiefs went in there and upset them because they played a great game. But no, I don't sit there. Just because the Chiefs are going for a three-peat, that doesn't mean this is the 1976 Steelers or 75 Steelers walking in with like 12 Hall of Famers. Like these teams are very equal.
Online or curbside, you can shop daily at Besame Wellness for all your cannabis needs. Use promo code podcast25 to save 25% on your entire order right now, Monday through Saturday, 9 to 9. Sundays, it's 10 to 6. Locations in North Kansas City, Liberty, Smithville, on Berry Road, and in Warrensburg, plus safe, secure, discreet delivery is available as well. Besame Wellness makes cannabis as accessible as possible. Even get deals at your doorstep with daily deals and promo codes like podcast25, saving you 25% on your entire order. Restrictions may apply. Getting your cannabis has never been easier. Besame Wellness, top-rated customer service team is ready to assist you with any questions or issues. Remember the promo code podcast25 to save 25% on your entire order. How many Hall of Famers do they have on this team? I think that's an interesting point, Sam. Like, what is this team? They're going for a three-peat, and I think Jeff's absolutely right. I don't think you can't hoard talent the way you could in an era when there was no free agency. No one could leave. They were stuck playing with you forever. So I don't think any of the teams, and we've had expansion and diluted the rosters and everything. But how good is this Chiefs team that's trying to three-peat in your mind? How many players are truly Hall of Famers? Chris Jones, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, here into the list.
Yeah, I don't think there's another one that's currently part of this team.
No,
I mean, I don't think
Nope.
so. I mean, I think the best. I think the best argument for number 4 is if Creed Humphrey has totally reset the market at center. I think the best, but he's got a lot left, right? I mean, he's got a lot left that he has to accomplish before he gets on that list. But if he wins 3 Super Bowl titles in his first 4 seasons, I think he's just a guy who could potentially be on his way.
Yeah, so the point is valid. They're not the Steelers, but no team is.
Right. I guess the other one I would say is the kicker. I mean, Harrison Butker has numbers that, are second just to Justin Tucker. So I think it's a possibility for him as well.
I mean, Jeff, how good do you think this team is as a whole?
I mean, they're good enough to win the championship again. I mean, no question about it. I mean, I didn't pick them to win it. I would enjoy watching them doing it because I love watching history being made. But look, the last couple years, I mean, if you're really honest with yourself and you've watched the way these championship runs have played out, they've been very good in critical moments, but a bounce here, an injury there, and they're probably not winning these things. And so it's going to depend on injuries. It's going to depend on how good the competition around them, how much they've grown. Like I was talking to a friend of mine today about, I'm from Michigan, watching the Detroit Pistons win back-to-back championships when I was in high school. And then all of a sudden I see the Bulls coming along and the Pistons are beating up on them. But every year you're like, oh, they're getting better. They're getting better. They're getting better. And then all of a sudden they're good. And that's how the NFL works. Teams are always getting better. And just because you won the championship, that doesn't mean that you are entitled to win it again the next season.
I think that plays into the mental factor for the Ravens, though, that we discussed earlier, because I agree with you, Jeff. I mean, the Ravens, I thought, were peak good last year. They were historically good DVOA-wise. I know people thought Eric Eager left this podcast, but they were historically good with DVOA, like top 5 of all time. And I think DVOA is like 1990 or something. And the Chiefs were the worst they had in the Mahomes era by several metrics offensively, and the Chiefs still win the football game in Baltimore. I mean, the Ravens could not have had a better setup than they had a year ago. And that's why I think this game is more important for the Ravens than it is the Chiefs.
And that's where I think you get into trouble with where are they coming in like this is their Super Bowl in week one.
That's the bet. Yeah.
You know, are they coming in bouncing off the walls and, you know, making ridiculous mistakes and that kind of thing? I think that's the fear here. If you're the Baltimore Ravens, are they too amped for this thing? The Chiefs have been in these games, right? There'll be a couple guys that haven't been used to it. This is old hat. This is the third year in a row starting like this. So they should come in calm, cool, and collected in this game. Doesn't mean they will, but they should. They've got the experience in these games.
But so it feels like every time the Ravens play the Chiefs, like they're always amped up. They're always amped to show something. Like I feel like, you know, Monday night games, you know, when they beat them that one year, when was it Clyde fumbled and like Lamar and Sammy Watkins were going nuts on the sidelines. I think every time they play the Chiefs, they feel like they're trying to show something. So I agree with you. I think they got to come in with their heads on straight and be more business minded about this.
I think the one thing that I will say is, you know, you said there always seems to be a turnover, an injury, or something like that. Chiefs had plenty of injuries last year, right? And they got through it. What I think doesn't register in the win totals going into the year, what doesn't register in the point spreads, what doesn't register, you know, the DVOA is a great mathematical way to measure teams. But I'll say it again and again and again. 151 to go and a timeout. The Chiefs are a threat to put points on the board and are likely to put points on the board. And I don't think you can say that about the Baltimore Ravens, right? They have to go win for 56 minutes. The Chiefs can even the field in that 151, which is what has people like me going, well, what if Andy would go for it on fourth down more often? You know, because that's what they start doing. If it's at the end of the game, the fourth down comes into play, they can't be stopped. You know, they know they've got to score a touchdown against San Francisco. So all four downs are in play. They can't be stopped. Like
they got stopped last year a few times in those situations.
They did early on when they were still.
Well, in Green Bay they got stopped, and against Philadelphia they got stopped.
Last year
they got stopped.
Last year they didn't have a fourth quarter comeback until what was it, the Bengals game in which they were down 1 point on the first play of the fourth quarter with the ball at like the 5-yard line. However, like what Soren said about the Ravens is right.
You point out they were still throwing the ball to Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore at that point.
Yeah. But that doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, we can't discount that as if that doesn't matter though. But to the part
it doesn't matter, but I think you've got to make a note of what was different.
That was the team they chose.
Once that changed, everything clicked.
Yeah,
your comment was that
they chose that team. That's the same coaching staff that they have now that opted that was the best formula to win football games, and they were wrong about it. But the part of your point I do agree with is the Ravens aspect of it, which is they still have to prove that they can win games that way. Last year in the AFC Championship game, remember, it wasn't the first time all season where they trailed by more than 8 points. Yeah. And do we think it's a coincidence that we're talking about their game plan being all out of whack? Well, they're down 14 points right out of the gate, and they abandoned the game plan that has won them football games all year because it was new territory for them. They hadn't been in that position literally the whole season.
Yeah. No, I agree. The thing about Lamar Jackson with that team or that franchise they've got to figure out is how are they going to win the championship with him? They know he's great. They know individually he can do amazing things, but last year was about trying to show people how much he's grown. In previous years, it was like you said, they couldn't get behind. They had to play a certain style of football. At some point, it's just you just got to be who you are and just go play. It's like you don't have to like turn him into some Superman or some Avenger to prove a point about how good he is.
That's a great point.
I think that's a very fair point. We're proudly brought to you by our friends at Restore Hyper Wellness. Feel your best every day with Restore Hyper Wellness in Kansas City. Cutting-edge treatments, IV therapy, cryotherapy, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, NAD, IM shots, and a variety of skin health services designed to help you recover like the pros, boost energy, reduce stress, and enhance well-being. Perfect for athletes, busy professionals, and anyone looking to improve health. Personalized wellness plans tailored to your specific needs. First-time IV therapy is just $99 when you mention Petro. That's right. Use my last name. Mention Petro, and your first IV therapy is just $99. Visit Restore Hyper Wellness at one of their 2 Kansas City locations in Zona Rosa or Hawthorne Plaza, 119th and Row in Overland Park. Embrace a healthier, happier you. No L'Jarius Sneed. We mentioned the wideouts that are there for the Baltimore Ravens. What does no L'Jarius Sneed? They never did really get a great answer to who that number 2 corner is going to be, Jeff. How much of a factor is no L'Jarius Sneed in this game?
Well, I'm concerned just listening to Steve Spagnuolo talk about it because it sounds like it's just going to be a filling out process starting the regular season. Like everybody's going to everybody who was in the running before is going to be in the running still. And we're just going to run out a whole bunch of different guys in different situations to see who can handle it. Now, I just don't know how you can be consistent and effective as a defense, as a secondary doing that. I mean, you want to be able to trust who's out there. You want to be able to know what you can call. And I just feel like this is going to be, until they figure out who it is and go with it, I think it's going to be a concern for this team being able to function at a high level defensively.
Yeah, are we missing the point when we start talking about their wideouts, how good they are, how far Lamar Jackson throws it? It's all about who the hell is going to cover whoever it is, Sam?
Yeah, well, I mean, Jalen Watson's going to start on Thursday night. I'd be stunned if Jalen Watson didn't start. I just think he hasn't had enough reps.
Finish.
Yeah, he hasn't had enough reps in training camp and preseason. I mean, he was bad in that third preseason game against the Bears, but I think a lot of it was his first game in a really, really long time. And so the question is, how long does it take him to feel like his normal self? Because, I mean, Jalen Watson is a serviceable cornerback. I think the bigger story matchup-wise for the Baltimore Ravens is the slot cornerback. And the reason is because they do so much inside. I mean, we talked about 8 guys in the box against Derrick Henry. Your slot cornerback has to tackle. Wow. And Shamari Connor is going to see some stuff that he hasn't seen before as a slot cornerback, playing against a team that you've got to be a major factor in the run game in particular. And, oh, by the way, they try and fool you constantly. With play action. I mean, the Ravens are great at play action, so you've got to not bite and still factor into the running game. And that's also where they missed L'Jarius Sneed. I mean, the most underrated part about the Chiefs cornerbacks last year is they were terrific tacklers. Trent McDuffie is a great tackler. L'Jarius Sneed has always been a really good tackler. And that factors in to helping stop the run, even though the Chiefs aren't great against the run. So if you lose that aspect of it, like Shamari Connor's going to have to tackle on Thursday night because there's going to be some spots where he's lined up against a guy like Derrick Henry.
I think it's a great point. But, I mean, we kind of expect that, don't we, Jeff? I mean, that's a Dave Merritt secondary. That's a Steve Spagnuolo secondary. They don't go after the Dion-style corner. They go after guys that'll put their nose in there.
Yeah, but this is a different beast. When the Ravens want to run the football and get physical, they are as physical as any team in the NFL. And Sam's exactly right. When you've got a corner like L'Jarius Sneed and McDuffie, who you can say, you guys take these guys on the outside and everybody else is going to be committed to stopping the run, that's a great way to shut somebody down. But if one guy out there you can't trust, or the other team says, we've watched this guy, and I guarantee you the Ravens watched that Bears film of Jalen Watson, and if he's out there, he's going to see a whole lot of Zay Flowers coming at him. And Zay Flowers got L'Jarius Sneed a couple times last year in the AFC Championship game. And so that's what gets hard is like, okay, now how do we deal with this? Because that's the trick bag that Ravens can present for you because Lamar is such a weapon offensively. It's not just, 10 guys, it's 11 guys you got to worry about or whatever. 6 guys, let's get 6 skilled players and 5 guys who were eligible receivers.
Zay Flowers he is the quick dart type of wide receiver as opposed to the big physical one. I mean, the Chiefs corners like them all. You like to play physical, but he's quick enough to just run away from you. So he is a problem. And he's got a lot to prove with that fumble, that he had at the goal line there. So
you think he hadn't been thinking about that?
Oh, I think he's been thinking about it a lot. And I think he's the guy you worry about the most to coming in with his hair on fire if you're John Harbaugh and the Baltimore Ravens for sure. Clyde Edwards-Helaire went on the non-football injury list. Sam, are we not going to see him this year? Or where do you think this goes? I mean, this is, I think on a national scale, kind of an underrated story on how this is all going to work.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's legitimate questions about when or if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is back with the Chiefs on the active roster. He's for sure obviously out 4 games. When you put somebody on this list, they're out the first 4 games. But, we talked all preseason about we certainly empathize with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I've said this before, but just to underscore it again, he's absolutely one of my favorite guys in the locker room to talk to. He's just a very real, genuine person. He's not somebody who gives you cliche quotes. He tells you what he actually thinks about something. He's great to chat with. And so that, everyone in that locker room is a human being. I empathize with any of them, but particularly just knowing the person, I do. But we talked a lot about what is okay. Now peel that back, and what are the football aspects of this? What are the football effects? And, it's why a week ago I advocated that they should be interested in a guy like Samaje Perine, because I thought they needed more depth at running back and a very particular type of depth at running back, which is somebody who could catch the ball out of the backfield. But I think that the longer you're out on the field, the longer a team can learn that maybe they can play without you, number one. And it's also, you missed 4 games. You were in and out of practice for 5 weeks. We still don't know what kind of football shape Clyde Edwards-Helaire is really in, how prepared he is, other than the fact that he's just a veteran player and a smart person. But first and foremost, he's tending to something else, which should be his primary concern right now with what he's going through. I will say, just to add one more thing, he was in the building today. And Matt Nagy, when I asked him about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, said he was in good spirits. And so it's just nobody other than Clyde Edwards-Helaire knows exactly what he's experiencing. Our outside perspective of what he's experiencing is that it's unpredictable.
Yeah. And Matthew's asked, I think it's him, or at least several people have asked it about him. Is there a chance he doesn't play at all this year? I think yes is the answer. Who knows? I don't think any of us know. I think if they thought they could figure it out, it'd be figured out. Right. So, yeah, I think he could miss the whole year. And you mentioned it, Sam. Samaje Perine becomes a bigger factor because of that. Jeff, what do you expect from Samaje Perine and what he'll bring for this offense?
Well, it depends on how fast he gets up to speed, but I've always been a Samaje Perine fan going back to his days in Cincinnati, and I don't know what happened in Denver. He was supposed to be a big addition to that offense, and he was gone pretty fast. But I feel like they'll find ways to use him effectively. I think it's an under the radar, a nice pickup for them. And I agree with what Sam says. We talked about Clyde Edwards-Helaire before the cutdown date, and just like, if you keep him because he's a veteran, well, you're going to be playing young guys anyway, because you don't know if he's going to be out there. And so at least now you have, a viable option who's a veteran, who's proven what he can do, who is a third down back option. It takes less pressure off Carson Steele, but I still think he should be, a short yardage goal line type guy who deserves to get carries. But I applaud the Chiefs for how they managed the Clyde situation, because it does show a certain level of compassion you don't see in pro football these days. But especially because he hasn't proven on the field that he deserves to have a job here. And so for them to go to the lengths they've gone to make it work with him I think it's very impressive. But it would not surprise me if he didn't play at all this year, just because they've got other options now.
For everyone listening to the podcast, you should be rooting that that's not the case, right? And we're all rooting that that's not the case, because it's a great story if he does come back and make an impact at some point this season.
I would agree, and that's what we will all root for. Dealing with what they have right now, Samaje Perine, honestly, this is one of those, and Sam, you brought it up, Jeff, you mentioned his name. This is one of those I remember when different things would happen, whether it was Vince Wilfork lasting in the draft to the New England Patriots or whatever it was, where I just went, is anybody else awake? Is anybody else paying attention to what you're doing? Just handing guys to the New England Patriots. Yeah. Sam McDowell sat and spent the entire offseason going, they need a veteran running back. They've either got to get McKinnon back or they need a back. And for about 3 weeks, he started even calling out Samaje P. He literally was Babe Ruthing, pointing to the outfield wall to call his shot. And yet nobody in the NFL went, we should probably keep that guy from getting to them. And I get it if you're Carolina or somebody that's on the rebuild, you got your own problems to deal with, but aren't you trying to block the perfect marriage of championship caliber team and their biggest need if you're paying attention to what's going on?
Well, even there are teams that need running backs. It's not even just that. It's just like Dallas Cowboys need running backs. And so we don't claim this guy when he's free.
Well, he was a vested veteran, so it was just. He gets the pick of the litter. And to your point about the Patriots, Soren, that's the correlation here. Is that if he's got his pick of the litter, why wouldn't you want to go to the Chiefs? If a Super Bowl defending champion and just scratch what they've done in the past, a contender this year is looking for a specific need. This isn't a bonus for the Chiefs. To your point, Soren, this is a need. They need to have somebody that can not only catch the ball out of the backfield, but is good in pass pro too. The pass pro element is just as important as catching the ball to the backfield, because I know a lot of people love Jerick McKinnon's pass pro. He was pretty good in pass protection. He was really good as a receiver out of the backfield, knowing when to leak out of the backfield. And he was just, I mean, he was a good catcher of the ball too. It might take Samaje Perine a blip or two to learn, where does Mahomes like me to leak out of the backfield when I'm in pass pro? When does he want me to escape here? Because this guy's going to extend plays a lot more than the quarterbacks he played with in Denver.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think there will be a learning curve, but I also think that, that quarterback with that coach is going to make it the shortest learning curve that you could possibly be, right? And so, I expect him to play a role immediately. Like I think that they'll have a package of plays where, a lot of that is like knowing who your blitz pickup is. What's the blocking call? Okay, are we shading right? Okay, I'm the back guy. I'm the backside. Whatever it is, we're fanning the protection. I've got to get whoever leaks up the middle.
Terminology. A lot of it's terminology. Yeah.
And so once he's got that down, then a lot of it, and like you said, then it's leaking out, and there'll be some element of that. But I think he's going to play a role right away. Like I don't think it's going to be, oh look, he's in street closer. How come Perine's not playing? I think he'll be out there and is the third down back. Like as soon as they got him, I'm like, well, so much for my theory that Isaiah Pacheco is going to be the all around back. I think Pacheco is going to be what Pacheco is going to be, and or has been, and Perine is going to take over all the McKinnon duties. I mean, it makes perfect sense and fits perfectly together.
I agree. I anticipate that's what's going to be his role. Now, whether or not that's his role Thursday night, I don't think that's going to be the best indication of whether or not it is for the season, because I do think he's got a learning curve. But having said that, like he's going to be dressed on Thursday night. Like he's going to be, one of the guys that's a factor in the game. But I mean, the Chiefs, as it turns out, are pretty similar in the backfield, which was one of my biggest concerns going into camp. But they're pretty similar in the backfield to what they have been the past few years, with Perine just sliding in for the McKinnon role and Carson Steele takes over, what Clyde Edwards-Helaire gave him the past couple of years.
Yeah. No, it looks, I mean, I don't know. Like I'm usually a guy that's all worried about things, and it looks like it all fits pretty good to me. Like that's the thing that's a little bit scary in my fandom part of the Kansas City Chiefs. Listen, we're brought to you by David Starnes, Allstate Insurance, serving the Kansas City metro area and all throughout the Midwest, covering all the important things in the world, home, business, life, even the fun stuff like motorcycles, boats, ATVs, you name it, get with Dave and he'll have you covered. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. See them online. Stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave today. He'll give you peace of mind, the things in your life most important to you. It's David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. I do want to bring up something, and this occurred to me, and I didn't put it on the rundown, but did you guys see the comments of Louis Riddick about Kingsley Suamataia? He said he's going to be all rookie, first team all rookie, and that the Chiefs got a Pro Bowl offensive tackle in the second round. Now, let me first say we all know that Louis Riddick worked for Andy Reid.
It still does, apparently. Different capacity.
I don't know what I don't know. Starting the hype train to getting him on all these all rookie teams and all pros. I don't know that helps, Brett Veach get the contract negotiated to fit in, but have we really seen that? Like, is that, or did somebody swallow the hook on?
I think he was hyping up Josh Gordon pretty big when he came through.
It was hyping up Clyde Edwards. All the national guys were hyping up Clyde Edwards-Helaire, his rookie year.
Le'Veon Bell was a steal.
When we were blinded from practice during that COVID year, we were led to believe that Clyde Edwards-Helaire was, I think one of them had first overall in fantasy drafts even. Well, let's see him play a game. Let's see him play one game first. And look, I think Suamataia has a lot of. He's been really good in training camp and preseason. I think he's been really good, but there are some things, especially from this defense, if this defense looks similar to what it has, that he's never seen before in his life. That's going to be coming at him on Thursday night. Like he's going to make some mistakes.
Yeah, and again, the roster of pass rushers he's going to see, from Myles Garrett to Nick Bosa to Max Crosby to up and down the line.
Both Watt
brothers.
Both
Bosa
Bosa brothers. Yeah.
No doubt. And when you talk about a guy being raw was one of the characteristics of him. Like, okay, let's jump in against Baltimore first go round after you've had about 24 live snaps. Like, isn't that about it? Didn't he get
that is scary. I mean, that's a little bit worrisome.
I think it's really scary. It's why
who's testing him in camp? Yeah.
I mean, and he has. I've seen a lot. And Sam, we always defer you're at more practices than me, but I was at like 8 of the practices, and he got plenty of reps against George Karlaftis, and I mean they went ones on ones, but it's like the games. Somebody wearing a different colored jersey, that where they're stunting and twisting and doing all their stuff. That's something else. And even if you played a bunch of preseason snaps, and maybe that's why they didn't play him. Like, hey, there isn't really much to learn here, right? Good or bad, right or wrong, whether we like it or not, he's got to play a regular season game. But I think it's like 24 preseason snaps is about all he had. And so, it's trial by fire on Thursday night, young man.
MVS was supposed to be an all-around receiver when he showed up here. I remember that one.
Yeah. And it didn't quite.
There's a lot
wasn't.
To
do.
Yeah.
He wasn't.
I don't know. Yeah, I missed the games when he was apparently.
Yeah. We're brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems, they've been solving them in Kansas City since 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your lot. Get your parking lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents and keep your parking lot as safe as possible. You can find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Do we see anything from JuJu? I mean, you guys had 18, 19 catches for him for the year, so I don't think we're going to expect a whole lot from him against Baltimore, do we?
Is he playing? Do we know if he's playing?
I mean, yeah, I think he'll be part of the rotation. But if he's going to have an impact, it's going to be while Hollywood Brown's out. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, I think he could potentially factor into the game on Thursday because, we have been talking about Justin Watson running underneath routes for 2 weeks now. Well, there's no guy that ran more underneath routes for the Chiefs when he was here than JuJuSmith-Schuster. I mean, literally ran more of those than anyone on the roster, those 0 to 9 yard routes. So if you're looking for that guy, I mean, JuJu's probably raising his hand saying, I've done this before.
Yeah, I can do it. All right, we'll see what he gives him. What do we got? Let's go to the predictions. Jeff, who are you thinking? Who do you like? What kind of score?
I'll go Chiefs, just going off season opener. You mentioned Andy's record. I feel like the Ravens, until they prove it, in a meaningful game against these guys, it's hard to pick them now. I picked them last year in the AFC Championship game, and it blew up in my face. So I think they can. I think the Ravens can win the game, but I like the Chiefs. I'll go 21-17.
Okay. Sam?
Yeah, I'm pretty similar as Jeff. I have Chiefs 21-20.
Ooh.
I think it's a good game. I mean, I think
it's a really good game.
I definitely, I mean, it's better than a coin flip for the Chiefs, but marginally better than a coin flip for the Chiefs.
I'm going to go 27-20 Chiefs. I think they win and cover. I think they have been really good in that. And I know they lost last year to the Lions, but we've talked about that and what went wrong. I think they come out, and I think they've got plenty of new stuff for the Ravens. And I think defensively, we'll see. Lamar Jackson's going to have to beat him with his arm. And he can do it. Let's be clear. He can do it. But I think this is going to be a whole different season for the Chiefs. They're not going to be – I think offensively they're going to hang enough points that some teams are going to have to chase. And maybe I can get back to some of those 37 –
Soren's living in 2020.
I can get back to some of those big score predictions that I like so much. But, yeah, I'll go 27-20. I like the Chiefs. What is the over-under? I don't even know. I'm probably dancing right around it. Is it pretty low? I know it's 3.
I have no idea. I don't even know what the line is.
46.5.
And I'm at 47. So there you go.
Chiefs -3.
Yeah, Chiefs -3 and 46.5. Give me the Chiefs and the over by a whole half a point. I'm strong on the over. That's where I'll put it. Remember, we're brought to you by a lot of great people here. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. You can find him. Give him a call right now at 816-781-7331 for all your insurance needs. He has you covered. Our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area, making parking lot problems, all kinds of parking lot problems, disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. You can save 25% on your entire order at Besame Wellness. Just use the promo code podcast25. That's podcast25. and save 25% on your entire order at Besame Wellness and one of our newest sponsors, Restore Hyper Wellness. Welcome to the club. You can feel your best every day with Restore Hyper Wellness in Kansas City. Remember, first-time IV therapy is just $99 when you mention Petro. My last name is going to save you money. That's right, Petro, Petro, and your first IV therapy is just $99. It's at Restore Hyper Wellness. So for Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network and NFL.com, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. We'll see you Friday after the game.